Nobody expects the Spanish country ball Inquisition. All these places speak Spanish, at least is what I'm trying to say. We got Mexico ball, Spain ball, and Chile worm. He's long, if you can't tell. This is actually the first country ball drop I've done where all three were so close. Spain is winning in sales, but not that much ahead of everyone else. This is a GPS map of a swimmer crossing the English Channel. Now, I figured it wouldn't be just a completely straight line, but this is actually a little ridiculous. Technically, the swim is only 21 miles. Only 21 miles. I don't think I could even do a mile. But with this swim pattern, which I'm assuming is done to go along with the currents, probably makes it easier. This is definitely a lot more than 21 miles. There is actually not that long of a list of people who have actually been able to achieve this. It's kind of like the equivalent of getting to the top of Mount Everest, except for swimming. Although the oldest swimmer to do it was a 73-year-old, whereas the youngest was 11. I honestly think I would get to that dot and I'd quit. Here are all the current men's world championships around the globe. Of course, a lot of us know this first one. The FIFA Men's World Cup was won by Argentina, so that is why they hold this title. Basketball was won by Spain. We've got Denmark with the badminton dub. Didn't think they'd be big badminton fans over there. Of course, England has cricket. This looks like maybe wrestling out of Pakistan. It's not wrestling, but this does look kind of fun. We got Spain with the tennis win, Norway with the chess win, Germany with field hockey. Finally, there's a US one with golf, Brazil with volleyball, Japan with baseball. Of course, America has American football. Is anyone else even allowed to play that? And I know China loves their table tennis. Those championships are pretty split up. All the moon landings ever made, and by which countries? So there's actually only ever been 4 to get here: the United States, the Soviet Union, China, and now the newest member, India. They were just successful in landing in the South Pole. So the US and the Soviets have obviously made several landings. China has done 2 successful, but they have another one coming, and here's the most recent new member to make it. What's interesting about this, though, is that other countries have attempted more recently in our timeline. Places like Israel, Japan, and Russia, not to be confused with the Soviet Union, they've attempted but failed. It's a lot of money to just go out into space. During 1976 to 2013, there were no moon landing attempts, and it looks like even the US hasn't tried to join back in on this. Crazy to look back at the 60s and see what this space war was actually like. The entire time from 1960 to 1965 were just unsuccessful attempts. Only the green circles actually made it to the moon, and we're still having trouble with that to this day. European countries and their favorite country for a summer holiday. Love the places picking themselves, like France, Italy, and Spain. Oh, and let's not forget about Portugal. But it looks like if you're either in Western Europe or Northern Europe, they're picking Spain. I'm actually going to do my own summer Spain holiday in Spain, but it'll be fall. If you're from the Visegrad group or Poland, Czechia, Slovakia, or Hungary, you love Croatia. And actually, if you're from a lot of the former Yugoslavian states, you love Croatia. Doesn't even seem fair. They have all this coastline, like of course. Wonder why they're not choosing Italy. Switzerland and Austria choose Italy, though. Most of the Balkans are picking Greece. Meanwhile, most of Eastern Europe, like Turkey, Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, they're picking Turkey. Of course, since it's summertime, you are going to want to move down south, get closer to the equator, enjoy the sun. So that is why a lot of these places are in Southern Europe. A little bit surprised that France is staying in France, though. Maybe they're going to French Guiana. Countries where children are the most satisfied with their lives. How did they even get the data for this? If I was 5 and you gave me a chicken nugget, I'd be having a great time with my life. So anyone ranked on this list is doing a pretty good job. We've got Chile in 38th, Australia and New Zealand also in the 30s, South Korea and Japan right next to each other at 20 and 21. Of course, we here in the US never do that great and stuff like this. Our happiness is not that high, even with the kids, I suppose. And Europe, of course, is topping the list, but no one is topping more than the Netherlands. They're number 1, is what I should say. They're considered number 1 with mental well-being, number 3 with social skills, and number 9 with physical health. Who's got the healthiest kids? We gotta put them back in the coal mines. Of course, Luxembourg, they're rich. The healthiest kids are actually coming out of Japan. Japan ranked 20th on the list because they don't have great mental well-being. Again, who knows how this data is gathered, to be honest. Mexico also rating pretty high in terms of mental well-being. If I was a kid growing up in Mexico, I would have had a blast. I am jealous of all my friends that got to go when they were kids. I can attest to this being so high. This is specifically at the age of 15, though. So Japan got number 1 because they have the lowest percentage of obese kids. But in terms of children getting skills for life, Estonia, Ireland, Finland's doing pretty good with that. Countries with the highest percentage who make friends easily at school at the age of 15, we've got Romania. These aren't really kids. These are 15-year-olds. Some of the age ranges are more, yeah, like children-like. I feel like when I was a kid, if you would have asked me, I would have wanted to live in the country with like the most anarchy. Like whatever had the least amount of rules rules. I was gonna say North Korea, but no, they definitely have a lot of rules. They just put me in the Wild West at the age of 6. That would've been cool. Speaking of which states are the most violent? Some notable high places are Tennessee. Didn't really expect that out of this state. They're more dangerous than my birth state of Alabama. Florida isn't even really that bad, but I guess it's important to remember this is based off of per capita. So Florida is crazy, but also Florida has a ton of population, which kind of brings down their averages. Although you can say the same for Texas, and Texas is a lot higher than Florida. California is right there alongside with them. Louisiana is not doing quite as bad as Tennessee, but Arkansas is pretty close to Tennessee. There's also Missouri too. There's also Arizona, but they are no match for New Mexico, who's actually the second most violent state according to this map. Finally, number 1 is actually Alaska. And again, I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that Alaska doesn't have that many people in it. They're actually still not even over 1 million. One of the safest places to be, though, is Maine. I think they're just focused on catching their crustaceans up there, and they're happy. Just eat some sea insects and you're good. Weird to see such a drastic difference between South Dakota and North Dakota. I feel like you should take this map with a grain of salt. Don't assume something really bad is going to happen to you if you go to Alaska. And also, don't assume everything's going to be perfectly safe in Mississippi either. This is all relative. Maybe this is what some of those dangerous states need. Average daily hours spent playing games by US men aged 15 to 24. So on average, back in 2003, this age range for men, they were playing about 30 minutes a day, a little bit over that. And that stayed about the same until 2010, then there was a big spike. Kind of hovered around there for 2015, and then obviously, you know, this is 2020, or it's technically 2019. On average, everyone was playing about 1 hour per day. But here we are in more recent times, and that number is getting close to 2 hours, which is insane. I'm surprised we didn't see more growth throughout this previous decade. Like when I was in this age range, about 1 hour per day sounds about right. Clearly, 2020 is still having an impact on everything. A summary of the Battle of Midway during WW2. Obviously, this was a massive turning point between the US and Japan. They blew up our boats in Pearl Harbor, and this is when the US was going to get our revenge. So the Japanese at this battle had 4 heavy aircraft carriers, 2 light aircraft carriers, 2 seaplane carriers, 7 battleships, 15 cruisers, and they really loved their little destroyers, and also 10 submarines. Whereas the US had 3 heavy aircraft carriers, which was actually less than Japan, 8 cruisers, which is far less than Japan, 18 destroyers, which is again far less than Japan. They had 42, but we had about double the submarines, almost double, but then 115 land-based Navy, Marine Corps, and Army Armed Force planes. So I think this is what really made the difference. Will you tell me Japan didn't have any planes during this battle? Are you serious? Wow, yeah, the Japanese had no land-based air support. I mean, I'm sure they had stuff on those carriers. All 148 carrier aircraft were lost at the Battle of Midway for Japan. What an insanely decisive victory. It looks kind of one-sided looking at this graph, but I guess there's more than just what kind of equipment and how many of it you have in a battle. Apple AirPods revenue versus top tech companies. You got X, formerly known as Twitter, at only 4.4 billion, which sounds like a lot, but it's not really. There's Shopify at 5.6, DoorDash at 6.6, Airbnb, eBay, Spotify. I don't even know what that is. Here's Apple AirPods, which is in third on the list. The only 2 things that are beating it out is Adobe and Asus. Let me remind you, this is just AirPods. Apple sells way more than just AirPods. I'll be honest, I got my first set of AirPods like ever, well, maybe like 3 months ago. They're okay. I like rocking my wired earbuds though, to be honest. It's just reliable. I like that I don't have to charge them. AirPods are really expensive. I don't know. What a wild stat though. Organization of mobs in New York. Now, if you watch The Godfather, you know the Don is at the top. This is the undisputed leader of the crime family. There is the underboss, powerful second in command, could be a family member such as a son being groomed to take over the business one day. But there's also a counselor and advisor to the boss, a trusted friend and confidant. There's a couple of capos ranking maid members of a family who made a crew of soldiers. Now, they don't all have to be in a family, right? It probably helps if the top are in a family together. These are some big families you'd have to have. You can't even do this nowadays. I'm sure some people are still making big families like this, but as we go towards the bottom of the list, we have soldiers or made men, lowest members of the family crime, still command respect though. And then below that are associates, crew members who have not been made yet. This reminds me, there's this great mob museum in Las Vegas that talks about all this stuff. It's crazy how powerful they were too. The BRICS members just admitted 6 new members. Already mentioned this several times before, but BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And BRICS is not a military alliance, it's a group of world economies. It has like a political and economic purpose together. So the 6 new members is 1, Argentina. Brazil now has a friend in South America. Ethiopia and Egypt, so South Africa also has a friend in their own continent. And then 3 Middle Eastern members, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Iran. And if they're beginning to accept new members like this, it's possible this thing gets even bigger. There's several other countries countries that have either applied to join or have expressed interest in joining. Places in orange are applicants, so we have Kazakhstan, Belarus, Algeria, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand. Meanwhile, in yellow, they said they might want to join. So a lot of places in Africa, as well as Mexico, Nicaragua. It's going to be very interesting to see how the US and the rest of Europe respond to this. This is probably the best new acronym they're going to be able to come with. Abiricasis. Big thanks to my patrons. Destiny 9,000. Drew needs to pay his taxes.
Why am I doing this?
JohnDenver,
I'm the kidnapper.
Jack
Traven's
annoying
paid his
friends.
ransom. This channel's not run by
InquisitorXarius.
Caleb,
Australia is real. I am not a paid actor.
LuxembourgLover,
5610.
Patrick
RyeThePie.
Subscribe to
The Mexican
TheGreatRalphy,
766.
Twickenhamster.
Become a patron by checking the description down below.